Did you know that CCTV has been serving the Cambridge community for over 30 years?
Yeah, everyone knows that.
But did you know that CCTV has all kind of classes, equipment, and events?
Of course I do.
But did you know that Cambridge residents can gain access to all of that for just $100 a year? And now, even non-Cambridge residents can join in on the fun as well!
Keaton, obviously I know that. We work together in the same office at CCTV.
I think on average, a night I get like 6 or 7 hours of sleep.
Like 3 hours.
Gotten like an average maybe 5 to 6 hours a night of sleep. If it's really good, I get like 8.
I got 6 hours of sleep.
7 hours? About 7.
Yeah, 7 to 8 hours of sleep usually, but last night I got like 6.
During puberty, a teen's biological clock shifts 2 to 3 hours later. This makes them tired later and sleep in later. According to the National Sleep Foundation, teenagers 14 to 17 years old need 8 to 10 hours of sleep a night. Sleep deprivation can affect teens in many ways. Sleep-deprived teens are more likely to experience cranky mood swings. Sleep-deprived teens are also more expected.
Welcome to Happiness in the City. This is Barbara, and today I'd like to focus our attention on a very interesting topic. It is a topic concerning the definition of what is right. This concept of right is used everywhere, all over the world. But very few people really look into the meaning, the content of what is right. Because right can be right, but right can be wrong for some other people. So there's a lot of confusion in thinking about the concept of right. Sometimes I think that there's no thinking about it. People take for granted their understanding of what is right, and that creates tremendous confusion, chaos, and conflict that is completely unnecessary, because it could be resolved if people had more sophisticated understanding of the meaning of right and also many dimensions of that concept. Let's look at the definition, and I encourage you to look into definition of things, because that's how you learn precision in thinking about what words mean. Because logos is not the same as chaos. Logos, language, has certain rules, and we are born with capability of language, so we learn to use the language very quickly. But the development of linguistic skills takes a lot of education, learning, and you can learn it at a basic level, you can learn it at a very advanced level, like people who have ability to write complicated books, poetry. So let's look at definition of right in the dictionary. Look here. Right is, the first meaning in this definition is it's a line. So it can be something that is not bent, which is interesting definition. There's a lot of assumption today that right can be bent, but in this particular definition, something is either right or is bent. Something that is a straight line and then it's bent is not right. It's really interesting to know that, because if something is bent, then we will not call it right. And that applies also to truth. it's right, true, but if it's banned, it's not right. So that is a very archaic, ancient definition of the word right. Then there's a definition in geometry of an angle. The kitchen counter formed a right angle with a back wall. So again, this is precision. In this particular definition, you have to have the right angle to fit in the meaning of that word. There is also in geometry of a geometric figure, incorporating a right angle between edges, faces, axes, a right angle, a right triangle, a right prism, a right cone, and then, and this is the one that creates a lot of discussion, is complying with justice, correctness of reason, correct, just, true. I thought you would make a mistake, but it seems you were right all along. It is not right that one person gets all the credit for the group's work. And I would say vice versa. It's not right that if one person did work, the whole group shouldn't get the credit for it either. So this is the concept in application to justice, correctness, or reason that in contemporary world has been causing most conflict, because people assume that they know what is right. There is a horrible situation in European continent around the so-called ACTA II, and that was a set of laws that were literally taken from what was appropriate 50 years ago, and then they applied it to contemporary technology, digital technology of global scale, under the so-called copyright excuse. And obviously it created something that is not right, because what was right 50 years ago is not right today. What was right copyright 50 years ago is not right today. And I realized that people in the digital world had a great difficulty dealing with this, because most people in internet world today are very young people, so they don't know what it is to be at home and turn on the radio and listen to the same Beatles songs over and over until you just feel like you can't take it anymore and just turn the whole radio off. Many of you who are used to contemporary access to music don't understand what it is to be restricted to a very limited group of songs under strict copyright, and then be forced to listen to them over and over and over again. It was a horrible experience. I hated that experience, and I wanted experience that would right that wrong, and that was to open the world to diversity of creativity from all over the world. And this became possible with internet. So internet created new concept of what is right in creativity, and that makes our experience in culture very interesting. And how to finance this is a different question from copyright, because we can work things out from the point of view of how to compensate diverse creators in the modern digital world. But to apply the ancient copyright ways to current technology created huge injustice. And ACTA II should be cancelled. banned. It's bad law. So we have to have the understanding about that concept of right in ways that is much more sophisticated than currently applied. The legal systems are functioning in a world that is used to liberty. And the United States of America has the right to liberty in the Declaration of Independence, and that is supposed to be the law of the land: right to liberty, right to life, and right to pursuit of happiness. This situation in which the concept of right got privileged position in American jurisdiction over any other law created duality in the legal system of America. The system that is foundational, which is based on the right, and the application of lesser laws to solve diverse problems of organization in the legal life of a nation. So we cannot say that a lesser law has the right to destroy the higher law, which is right to life, right to liberty, and right to pursuit of happiness. Because right there within that conflict is destruction of the entire foundation of American law. And we have to have sophistication about that, because a lot of the fear today is that a minor law can destroy the entire foundation of American political thought and political right to liberty, right to life, and right to pursuit of happiness. I'm very surprised that that concept of difference between right and other laws is not even discussed at the highest level of American government. Other governments in other countries, they don't even understand that. So for many people, that kind of conflict and duality in legal system doesn't exist. However, most countries of the world have a concept of traditional heritage law, unspoken law, the way things have been done for generations. And this is not a written body of laws, but is very powerful. And someone would come from a country and culture of written laws and would try to destabilize and undermine that kind of thinking of social organization. And that creates conflict and creates a lot of hatred and a lot of misunderstanding between nations. Then at the highest level, there is also concept of divine right, and that is from Israel. And this is the concept under which Arabia lives, and I'm talking about all the Arab countries. Muslim religion came later, but there is tradition of organization of life that comes from God himself in those countries. So when someone comes in and tries to destroy it, they attack God himself. And if you don't understand it, you'll never have any peace between countries ruled by divine right and countries that are either ignorant of what it is or decided to abandon it in their own heritage. And this leads us to come to the situation in Europe with ACTA II. Because all European countries know divine right. Every single one of them. And what do we have in European Union today? Not even a mention of that word. So the word copyright came as a substitute for divine right. But divine right is right given to God. And God gives a lot of things freely. Whereas copyright is concept applied to an individual. So an individual wants to have restriction on the use of what God gives freely. So Europe is in huge conflict over this issue, over the heritage of divine right, which was never cancelled by God, and the copyright, which is essentially a form of blasphemy in which those individuals want to have in their own names what is property of God. So this situation of very restrictive copyrights is bad law, and it's law that does not understand the duality between the higher right that in America is understood as right to life, right to liberty, and right to pursuit of happiness, but the very concept of right in the United States legal system is really derived from European divine right. The founders of American modern statehood did not want to use the word divine right because they were they were rebelling against King of England, but they were all English noblemen, George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and they understood within their whole being the difference between divine right and civil laws, and they did not want to be against God. They wanted to separate from King of England, but they didn't want to separate from God. So America is really ruled by divine right without the clarity over the relationship between the word right to life, right to liberty, and right to pursuit of happiness and the concept of divine right. But it's the same thing. It means that priority is given to divine right over any other law. And if you don't understand it, you are in danger of fighting God himself, and you will never win because he's immortal and you are not. So I recommend that we'll come back to calm thinking about those diverse aspects of organizing legal principle of right. There are countries like China. China is governed by divine right too. It's different than it is in Europe, but it comes from thousands of years of imperial right. And emperors of China always gave priority to God of creation. That's how they related to God. But they understood that there is power that creates nature. So in China, the concept of natural right is very close to what Europeans call divine right. In other words, it is a concept that gives priority to the creator of the universe and creator of nature over civil laws. If you understand that about China, you'll have much easier connection and respect for the wisdom and power and authority of China to understand that. So some of the applications of the so-called copyright that would take a lot of what is rightfully owned by God, God's right, nature's right, and then some people would like to take authority over it, claim it, and restrict it from nature and from God. And right there, there's conflict with China, because China would never accept that. There are many other situations in the world that show that no peace is possible because of that lack of understanding in the organizing principles of life in many countries. And no matter how many weapons you will have, no matter how much money you have, if you do not understand the organizing principles of life in those countries, you will not have peace. So we have to calm down and start learning about that multidimensionality of ordering within different countries. And then we'll have clarity over what laws to enforce and what laws not to enforce. Because if you want to enforce laws against God, you will lose. You can't win with God. If you want to enforce laws that are lesser laws, and they would destroy right to liberty, you will not lose either. The danger is that there may be a lot of suffering caused by that. So we have to have clarity in this very important issue. You would not buy an iPhone that would do whatever it wants. There is a certain order in software. You will not want your television to work one day, the other day not work, and then defy itself as television. That would be totally inappropriate. So, likewise, with systems of law that organize heritage and that organize diverse societies, there's also a very important aspect of right, and that is connected with the very nature of our individuality as human beings. It's called birthright. What one father and one mother give one child is not the same what another mother and another father give another child. There is no inequality here. It's designed like this by God. There is even a commandment around this issue called honor thy mother and thy father, from divine right, from divine law. Because that is the way God created us. So to have a situation in which one family wants to defy their own birthright in order to take over birthright of another family creates a lot of disorder and creates a lot of conflicts that cannot be resolved without recognition of birthright. Now, how can you measure birthright? That is not something that is understood and connected to ways of civil law. The only thing that civil law can do is to affirm name and identity of a person. But birthright is genetic, is spiritual, is soul, is very complicated. It can reach thousands of years, generations, and it can only be discerned by relating to an individual human being and discerning what gifts that person has. And traditionally, educational systems were developed to guide educational ways in such a direction that would enhance birthright aspects of an individual's life. a teacher should not force something on a student that that student by birthright would not be able to absorb, or because of that student's birthright would consider that kind of imposition a form of violence. So in closing, I'd like to encourage you to come back to very sophisticated thinking about diverse kinds of laws and to understand the heritage that informs our legal system and defend it because it's good system. Right to life, by definition, creates defense of life for everybody. Right to liberty, by definition, creates freedom to everybody. Right to pursuit of happiness does not restrict anybody's ways to search for happiness. So those are the ways of divine right that are devised by God, and they work. And any attempt to correct this ends up in emptiness, devastation, and lack of peace. Thank you so much for listening to my remarks today, and see you here next week for another edition of Happiness in the City.